Let's get started with today's open discussion. I hope everyone can hear me okay. And see me as well. Just doing a little bit more setup on the back end here. And then we'll move into our opening prayer. So just give me another minute. I believe I fixed the issue from last week of not seeing all the chat messages as they came in. So hopefully that won't be a problem today. All right, so let's open up reciting the prayer for spiritual workers, and then we'll move into today's session. Prayer for spiritual workers. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their limitations, would smite me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their weakness, would not heed me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their ignorance, will defile you through me. And I ask, Almighty God, O wondrous power, that your strength may be given to me now, so that I might be fortified by this, so that I might go forward bravely into the world, and despite reception, send forth my love of thee throughout all races of man. Almighty God, give me the power and strength to rise above my karmic weakness, the deficiencies in the pattern of my evolution, so that I might evolve and become stronger, I, and even stronger, in thy everlasting light. O God, thy will be done. All right, welcome to another open discussion and various topics. Today we will be continuing, or actually completing, our discussion on life after death. And as I mentioned last time, we will briefly touch upon the 9 freedoms. I said we will look at the path of moving from basic man to advanced man to adeptship to mastership. I believe we closed out last session looking at a couple of diagrams describing that process. Let's see if I can put one up really quickly. Then we'll talk about our path of evolution as laid out by the text, The Nine Freedoms. Let me pull it up really quick so you can see where you can pick up a copy of it from the Aetherius Society. So if you go to aetherius.org and click on store, or shop, sorry, you'll see that this text here, The Nine Freedoms, which is a series of transmissions received through the mediumship of Dr. George King. And it metaphysical treatise that describes our path of evolution, both on this world and beyond, correlating specifically to the solar system. The teachings in the Nine Freedoms do not go beyond this our evolutionary path in this whole system, not because the authors and the entity giving the transmissions could not go further, but what was given in the text is more than enough for us to be able to handle at our current level of evolution. You can pick this up on the aetherius.org website, and then there are also a series of lectures that go along with it. I do not want to give a series of lectures myself on this material. It's a very advanced material, and I could not possibly do it justice. But if you can, you are more than welcome to use the lectures made available by the Aetherius Society given by Dr. George King. And we also have a playlist in which my teacher, Nehemiah Davis, gave a series of classes on the Nine Freedoms. So with those two together, plus the text, and if able, you can also pick up the transmissions on CD or digital audio file to help you study this advanced material. For today, I will actually be using the notes that Nehemiah gave us during the Nine Freedoms series, but I'll only go into the first freedom, bravery. If you want me to do a review of that lecture series that Nehemiah gave on the Nine Freedoms, I can. And as just like I'll be doing with some of the other earlier lectures, I'll present the diagrams and the handouts that were used, as well as updated diagrams and illustrations that Nehemiah has made since those lectures were originally given. But ultimately, it will be best to go back, review those materials, pick up a copy of the text and other texts that are made available online, either through the mysticknowledge.org website with the society or other teachers that we recommend studying from, like, for example, Mabel Collins, Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and so on. So we do have a couple of questions that were emailed to us in response to our last open discussion, where I had recommended a film that you can watch. I will give you a bit of a introduction, you can say, to what life is like beyond physical death. The movie was called No Solar, which means Our City or Astral City. And it is a film produced by the Spiritist movement in Brazil. The source material for that movie is actually a series of channelings that was done by the author. And he wrote those channelings down as they described life in this city on the other realms, particularly on the astral realms. As we'll go into some of the questions here, and that talks about that film. But another source that that Nehemiah had recommended today that's actually available to download on our mysticknowledge.org website. For further information, if you're interested in life after death, is a textbook called The Life Beyond Death by Yogi Ramacharaka that you can download and read. So actually, before you watch the movie, No Solar, I would recommend that you listen to the lectures by Dr. George King, Life After Death, and Karma and Reincarnation. In Life After Death lecture, he talks about the realms of the masters and the realms that we go to as well when we pass on. And I also recommend that you'd read through this text. This text aligns much closer to the teachings, to the ancient teachings and to the lecture Dr. George King gave us than the movie does. Plus in the movie, there's other artistic freedoms that were taken because it's really, we can't take a video camera over to the astral realms, record it, and then bring it back for us at present. So this book, The Life Beyond Death by Yogi Ramacharaka, aligns much closer with the teachings Dr. George King gave us in the ancient teachings. So I'd recommend you read this one and then go and watch the movie, or some of the movies like that as well. There's another one I believe Robin Williams did. I don't remember the name of it, where it goes into a similar idea or subject material. All right. And so before we go into today's material, do we have any questions or comments? So for the questions we have emailed, we have a couple. The first question relates back to the movie. Could you say how much of Astral City was accurate? Which level is the Astral City on? Could you talk a little bit more about the movie? I would say okay, well, as Jack, you're the one who asked this question. You're also a member of the Aether Society. When it comes to channeling, and probably Nehemiah, you can talk more in detail about this, more depth about it. The yogi mediumship that Dr. George King does is very unique. It's a very highly advanced form of mediumship in which he raises Kundalini up to a high center, thereby allowing very advanced entities, cosmic entities, to use him as an instrument in order to bring a message across. It's a positive, and it's a positive yogic type of mediumship. And that is unfortunately not the common method of mediumship that is used by most of humanity, with those who do channelings. Many times, which you'll find in many channelings, it's a negative form where they blank their mind and put themselves into a negative state in which any entity is able to walk in and speak through them. A lower astral entity usually is the case. There's very rare instances where it's of a positive type, like for example, when the Tibetan was speaking through, was it Alice Bailey? I think it was Alice Bailey. Or the best example we have, the modern example we have, is the mediumship of Dr. George King. Those are very rare. But in those negative channeling states, much of the message is garbled, right? It's Dr. George King talks about this when he was doing healing on the lower realms. There was actually a a being on the lower realms that he was pushing messages through to try and give teachings to those in the lower astral realms. And he was saying how difficult it was for him to push a message through because of how clouded and distorted the aura of the person he was speaking through was on the lower astral realms. It was difficult, maybe less than 15% of the message he was actually pushing through actually got through. And it's a similar results here when you have channelings. It's not only like channeling where the entity is speaking, it could also be done through impressions are received by the individual and they're writing it down, as was the case with the author of the Astral City in No Solar. No entity was speaking, but he was writing it down as messages were coming to him. There are many different ways in which channeling can be done. But I go into that because when you watch the movie Astral City, Jack, it is an interpretation on an interpretation on a channeling. So the original text was a channeling given to the author and using automatic writing. And then so there's some distortion and loss in the message there. And then that text was then made into a screenplay and a script. And then there's also some artistic elements in there that the producers and directors took in order to create the screenplay. So again, there's some loss there as well. But as far as the representation of, the passing of the main character, how they lived their life and wrapped up in materialism, and then when they died, even though they were a doctor, in their life, in their gross physical life, when they passed over, they were completely, the concepts of spiritual healing, energy healing were completely foreign to them. And they had to practically forget all that they knew when they were alive on Earth in order to learn this new type of healing that's actually performed. How they refer to the main character as a suicide, even though he swore he never killed himself, never took his own life, but it was through years of abuse of alcohol and so forth that slowly deteriorated his aura and left lesions in the aura. So there's a lot of parts in the movie that are accurate. And if you project over to the other realms, you can see the auras of those who abuse drugs, abuse alcohol, their lesions and sores and all types of illnesses and distortions in their aura that they take over upon the death of the physical body. Just like in the physical body, you abused alcohol for a long time, it causes sclerosis of the liver and other types of illnesses. The same thing is reflected in the subtle bodies. But the physical body is discarded, the subtle body moves forward and carries those ailments with them. And you can see that when you pop over to the astral realms and see that in the auras of those around there. So I would say that much is accurate. The realm that the main character is taken to after death, we call that the realm of waiting, where some individuals spend a short amount of time there. Some individuals spend a long amount of time there. We talked about that when we were looking at the process of life after death. And then eventually there are, just like in the film, there are those who specialize in approaching those who are in that realm of waiting, ministering to them, giving them healing, and then helping them to transition into the realm they were supposed to go to continue on in their evolution. So there's quite a bit in the movie that's accurate, but I would say to defer to the teachings of Dr. George King on life after death, the text that we talked about earlier, Life Beyond Death by Vikram Traka, and look back at the lectures that we've given as well, Life Beyond Death, for the much more accurate description of what happens. The next question, if Astral City, sorry, did you want to say something to that, Nehemiah?
No, I only watched maybe 15 minutes of that movie.
Okay. Oh, but I do want to mention one thing, Jack. The part of the movie where I don't remember if it was World War I or World War II where that film took place, where right before a major event like that occurs, there is kind of like a clarion call that goes out across the realms, especially the higher realms. And again, if you listen to the lectures or transmissions that are given in Theory Society, especially go back and read the Cosmic Voices, whenever there was a war or a major climate event or a disease wave or something, there was a clarion call that went out across the realms, and it was all hands on deck, be it intervention from the Great White Brotherhood, intervention from the Cosmic Masters, or even emergency periods where Dr. George King would tell the members, okay, we need to do the 12 blessings every day for 1 week, 2 weeks. You need everybody to attend prayer power. We're going to hold extra prayer power sessions. That part is real, and happens. And that's one of the blessings of prayer power, is that we can actively participate in helping to manipulate the karma of the world, and not just having to constantly rely upon the intervention of the masters, because intervention cannot last forever and will not last forever. We should be manipulating that karma ourselves, because we constantly fail to do that. The masters have had to intervene. And so in the movie, when I think it was World War I or World War II was about to happen, and you see the bombing runs that were done over Europe, and then all these souls are taken over, just pushed out into the astral realms, and they're in this very traumatic state. I believe it was World War II, because they were wearing Stars of David, so I think it was World War II. And they're just immediately forced out of their body and forced onto the astral realms. That does happen in some emergency periods where you have cities like No Solar, which minister and help those who just transition over. Yeah, that does happen. That much was accurate. But it's I would have to defer you to the teachings of Dr. George King. Like, for example, when the Asian flu was ravaging across Asia, that there was an emergency period in the Theory Society where every day he had the members performing the 12 blessings or some aspect of the 12 blessings in order to radiate enough energy to help manipulate karma and stop that disease wave from wreaking the havoc that it would have done had the members of their society and the Cosmic Masters not intervene in that way. Okay. If Astral City was set in level 1, I don't know exactly, Jack, what level Astral City or that movie that they're referring to. I would say it's the upper lower astral realms. I know it doesn't mean that makes sense. But it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. There are many realms in between those major realms: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. As you looked at before a couple classes ago, we're describing the realms after death. And even when you're listening to Dr. George King describe movements of the adepts, either in a mission, like say Carmelite or alien mission, as they're moving throughout the realm, so say level 1, level 2, level 3, level 1, level 4. Most times they're referring to the major realms, but sometimes they could be referring to sub realms. It depends on usually when the master theorist is giving the descriptions of the movements in the realms, they'll be specific enough to those who are quite astute to know which realm is being referred to. But in regards to the Astral City, I don't know exactly which realm, but I would say, because of how populous that city was and the people on the realm was, it would have to be a lower astral, somewhere around, maybe around, just guessing, solar plexus, sex center. there seem to be many saintly people, doctors, nurses, administrators. Were they not on higher levels because they stayed behind to serve, or because of karma? This level seemed heavenly, with ultra modernistic architecture, immaculate gardens, etc. How do the many higher levels differ in terms of landscape, for example? Are they less reflective of the physical plane, or is it in the activities of the people? So one thing you'll notice if you project to the astral realms, and I keep saying project to the astral realms because it's for myself and for those of us on Art of Evolution, it's a bit more difficult to go up to project to the etheric planes. So I'm in my own projections, for example, I'm more familiar with astral projection. But when you project to the astral realms, you'll notice, one, that they are much more advanced technologically than we are here on the gross physical realm. And they might describe this in a lecture when he's talking about the realms. One of the reasons for that is humanity spent much more time on the astral realms than we did in the gross physical realm. After the destruction, Maldek was the planet, and Lemuria, Atlantis. After the destruction of Maldek, humanity did not immediately come to the gross physical plane of Earth. You'll remember in earlier lectures, which I don't know if you had a chance to look at those, Jack, but we'll review those as well. When Dr. George King talks about it, but not as in much detail as Nehemiah does in some of the early lectures, where he talks about our departure from Maldek and how the Senate Kumara had to come help to build the realms. And it's not that Dr. George King couldn't do that, and I was not capable of describing that, not at all. It's just I don't think he had the time to do that based of all the missions and things he had to do during the single incarnation while he was here. But if you look at some of the earlier lectures that Nehemiah gave when he's talking about the formation of the Earth, or what the Earth, planet Earth and Mother Earth had to go through in order to take on this race of beings who had just destroyed a planet, and all the cosmic entities that had to intervene and help with that process, not only in building the lower astral realms, because those realms were not here, because they were not needed. Adamic man who was on Earth, the race of beings who had populated the Earth while humanity was on Maldek, they lived on the heart center and above. In fact, their base of the spine was not the Muladhara, as our case for us. It was the heart center. So they lived in and populated the etheric realms, as is common throughout the solar system. The beings of Mars populate the etheric realms, the beings of Venus populate the etheric realms, and so on and so forth. So in order to make space for the incoming race, which had just destroyed a planet and subsequently chosen the path of free will and therefore involved themselves, the Mother Earth had to involve itself and create the lower astral realms to house us, as when we came to this, when she allowed us to come onto this world and to continue our evolution. We spent a significant amount of time on the lower astral realms, while the other realms, like the gross physical realm, were being molded and shaped to allow us to incarnate upon it and continue our evolution. So I'm roughly, going over millions of years of history. But again, if you want a detailed discussion about it, there are lectures that Nehemiah has given about it, as well as illustrations and diagrams where he actually lays out a timeline and goes step by step onto how the Senate Kumara and the other beings that came here built the astral realms, built the physical realm, and built the body that we currently inhabit and use to move about our evolution, the gross physical body and subtle bodies that we use.
Yeah, I think in it was Madame Blavatsky.
Yes, yeah.
Gave some great details, and then Anna Besant, the Tibetan through Anna Besant, gave us a lot of details. There was a solidification of Earth that had to happen in order to bring about the physical realms and the astral realms. So the Meldic man spent hundreds of thousands of years on the astral realms, and to our knowledge, according to the Rama Prasad, who released the secret Upanishads of nature final forces, he said that the heart chakra realms had to split themselves,
Right.
and that's how the solar plexus realms, the sex center, and the base, and all the other realms came about. There was a metamorphosis of the Earth where it became denser and denser and denser and denser and denser, to the point where the lower astral realms were created, and the gross physical realm was created. And science will tell you, the metaphysical science will tell you that the lower astral realms are denser than the physical gross realms, and it's just that the astral realms are subtle density, and the physical realms is a gross density. If you can understand that,
Mhm.
understand mathematics and geometry, really, to a certain degree. But yeah, so that it took many hundreds of thousand years, maybe a million or two years to make sure that all the realms. So even when the first physical humanoid body was grafted and created comically, and that happened because of Senator Kamara took up residence here on Earth, that allowed karma to kind of like slow down to allow them to do that. And even then, they had to go through at least 3 to 4 different bodies in order to get mankind to where they are now, where there's kind of like a stabilization and equilibrium to allow them to be in this gross, involved, primitive body, but yet have a pathway to higher spiritual evolution. So it took the cosmic masters, many millions of years to bring that about. So it's something to read. If you read the teachings of Madame Blavatsky and the Tibetan through Alice Bailey, they give some of the clears, and then Dr. King just come and just in one chapter just summarize everything in the You Are Responsible, and I think portions of the 9 Freedom, just in summarizing in a way that all the volumes of their books couldn't summarize it, or didn't summarize it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he also did a lecture he did 2 lectures. I think only one is out right now, called The Cosmic Plan. He did 2 lectures on the Cosmic Plan,
Mm-hmm.
but only one is published right now, where he sums up the whole Cosmic Plan, talking about these things. And then let me tell you something about the realms, which a lot of people don't realize it. here on the physical realm, you have multiple realms here on the physical realm,
Right.
but most people don't recognize that. You have realms of consciousness, because the realms are actually realms of consciousness. You the most noticeable realms on the physical realm is the realms of the human kingdom. But you have realms of the insect kingdom, you have realms of the animal kingdom, and you have realms of the sub-mammal kingdom, and then you have realms of the planetary, the vegetable kingdom, and you have realms of marine life kingdom. And then when you come back to the human kingdom, you have different realms of evolution. A lot of people look at the modern technology and they think, oh, that's the higher realms, that's the higher way of living, when really it isn't really, because how did that technology produce itself here on the physical plane? Did it produce itself through harsh labor and exploitation and all these things? I mean, and then you got a group of people living in this so-called serene level. They may be doctors, but they may be complete a-holes too. So they may be, people supposed to be of higher thinking, but how did they get there? And where's their real humanity? Are they truly, people that good Samaritans who really want to help people, or is it built on some fake foundation? So you may find a so-called third world country people living a certain way, but they live a wholesome spiritual life where they honor the kingdom of God in every aspect. And those might be the people who, who actually are at the higher realms of humanity. They may not live in the palaces or whatever, because they may have refused to do so in order to be a shining light of wherever they are. So let's not get caught up on that, because there's technology, because in most cases, the people who at the top level of modern technology and who take advantage of it are the people who have did the greatest harm to humanity and continue to do it. So so when they go to the other side, I think a great population of them will be on the lower astral realms. They will not be on the higher astral realms.
Right. And for those who watch the film, that is a subtle message that is reflected in the film. So you'll have to pay attention to pick that up. What I mean by that is, for example, Dr. Andre, who was the wealthy, highly skilled doctor in his physical life, when he passed on, he went straight to the realm of waiting, went to a lower realm, was in a state of confusion, and was in the lowest levels of the astral plane. Now, Dr. Andre's mother, who was very religious and very spiritual, if you remember, when he transitions to Astral City and first meets his mother was residing on a higher plane and actually comes down to visit her son from time to time, and was only allowed to approach her son after the main character, Dr. Andre, had come to a certain level of realization and healing. Then he was well enough and established enough to be able to meet his mother, who came from a higher plane. And another subtle message from that film, the most advanced being in that movie was actually the housekeeper, the Afro-Brazilian maid and homekeeper. She was the only one that was able to perceive Dr. Andre after he came back to the family, came back to the physical realm to visit his family and speak to them. So that message, you'll see that if you pay attention in the film, is reflected. Those who we would say is of a lowest status, or not quite advanced or saintly on the physical plane, because like Nehemiah was saying, the way they live their lives, the way that their spiritual enlightenment and awareness, on the other planes, they could be highly advanced individuals.
That's very important to understand.
Yes.
It's like I told you before, I remember meeting this Swami, and he was I was sitting inside. I was sitting inside the Theosophical Society. And he was scheduled to come there. I didn't know he was scheduled to come there.
Mm-hmm.
When he drove up, I felt his presence. His aura was just that radiant and wide, and I felt him. And it's like I could feel his steps, his presence. And when he came in the room, I knew it was him. But there was this lady, this Christian minister. I was in my office, and my office was on the second floor, and I was working outside of a college at the time, and she pulled up. And when she entered the building, I immediately became aware of her. Mm-hmm. Same, don't have a lot of knowledge, don't have, this great wisdom or whatever, but she was true to her teachings. Mm-hmm. She believed in, that she was a servant of God. And when she came up, I could feel her presence, tremendous, wonderful, beautiful aura, come up through the elevator and come. And I knew she was coming to me. She wasn't scheduled, but I knew she was coming to me. And she had a beautiful aura, just like the Swami. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The Swami had spent many years studying and preparing himself to be who he was. And this lady had just a great belief and felt that she would be led by God. So, and she had no great status. So, don't get caught up on that, because it's your actions that count. It's your actions that really count. Mm-hmm. So it's not who you are and what you are and all that. I mean, the knowledge helps to advance you, right. But any knowledge, like she came aware that she needed to be an instrument that God can use to help people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what propelled her to a high level of consciousness. And she did not look down on anyone because they didn't belong to her church or race. Because when she get to that level of understanding, she understands that God is everywhere and in everything.
Right. So when the Master Jesus, the New Testament said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's what it's referring to when you, especially look back at the movie and listen to what Nehemiah is talking about now. In the film, remember his niece who had crossed over, was engaged to get married. She had lived a good life and was so wrapped up in materialism that that's all she could think about. And that's all she cared about, was returning back to the physical realm to get back to her fiance and to get back to her lifestyle. She couldn't accept what had happened to her, that she had passed on, and to move on in her evolution to stay in that subtle realm and continue evolving and advancing. Her entire mind was wrapped up in materialism. And so much so that she tried to make her way back, ended up harming herself, and forced both her incarnation, the incarnation of her aunts and whatever, to go back so that they can continue to help her evolve and move forward. So if you guys want, maybe like on a Friday or a Saturday, We can do like a joint screening. We could watch it together, and we could do an analysis and talk about the film more in detail. If you guys are open to that, or if you want request that. But again, I would highly recommend reading the text, Life Beyond Death by Yoga Charaka. You can go to the website and download it, and listen to the lectures, Life After Death, The Realms of the Masters, Dr. George King. Let's see. Yeah, so Jack, following up on that question. So it was mentioned in the film, think about the timeline and what the film is taking place. On Earth, we were still using telegraphs and sending letters, handwritten letters and like that. But on the other realm, they were using computers, sending electronic messages back and forth. So usually if you pop over to the astral realms, you'll see more advanced technology there. And it slowly makes its way to the gross physical realm, as Nehemiah and Dr. King said before. Most of the scientists and are in the lower astral realms, but then when they incarnate onto Earth, they bring that technology with them. Unfortunately, a lot of those technologies are used in military applications first before they're pushed out to the general population. So the military had internet long before the general population did, the military and so on and so forth. But if you look at some military technologies, you'll get an idea. The newer stuff is kept top secret, but if you hop over into the astral realms, you'll see it. They have laser weaponry. Or if you listen to Carmelite's transmission, if you get a chance to do that, Jack, the weapons that they were describing there are not yet available. Or even the alien mission, those weaponry are not yet here on the gross physical realm, but they will make their way here eventually. And hopefully I didn't trigger any red lights. Let's see how many. Landscape, for example. Okay, so one thing I noticed is when I popped over, it's everything, like Zima was talking before, it's physical. The astral realms are just as physical as the gross physical realm. You touch a table in the astral realm, it's a physical table. You're walking on physical ground. The air is physical. It is just as physical. It is just a different quality of matter, a different frequency of matter that you move. They're denser. There's less space in between the atoms on the subtle realm than there are here on the gross physical realm, and you perceive that through your senses. The colors are much more vivid, and because you're operating with your astral senses now, so there's more of a clairvoyancy, a clairaudiency that's happening. I know when I popped over sometimes and became conscious of my projection, because I'm not yet able to do a positive yogic projection. Mine is still the projection you do every night when you go to sleep, for example. But when I became aware, everything was much more vibrant. The colors much more vibrant. I could smell color. I could hear color. The light from the sun, it's just much more vibrant. So they tried to portray that in the film by using a different type of color science, as they made the physical realm darker and drearier, and they made the lower astral realms much darker, much drearier. But when they were on the realms of the astral city, it's brighter, it's more vibrant. It's more alive. You when you project, you see that. But the grass is still just as physical as grass. The flowers are just as physical flowers as you would have in the physical realm, but it's of a different matter, of a higher frequency. When planets go back to the sun at the end of a life cycle, what happens to the life streams on it? Yeah, I don't know. So that's the name for that one.
Well, I mean,
I would assume they'd have already transitioned to other worlds. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, the way it works, what we understand is that they move to a higher vibration. or they they move to a higher vibration, or they may leave that planet and then come back to that planet. But the it's not necessarily a physical. It depends on what life cycle the planet is on too. So you have to remember that, because they say that each planet have 7 lives that it must go through with this particular solar system. So the vibrations, the planet moves to a higher vibration of existence, and that's how, and because the sun releases a particular energy, or karmic window opens up, and then that planet moves to a higher vibration. So now that planet enter into its next life. So going back to the sun doesn't necessarily mean physically going back to the sun until it's actually cycled out. In other words, I hope you can understand that. Because the physical planet that we see, the planet have multiple bodies. And it's those etheric bodies of the planet that actually keeps this gross physical body in existence. So, and I think Madam Blavatsky tried to explain that, and one of her explanations on a base physical level was that over time you'll notice that the planet gains layers and layers and layers of dirt. At least when she described this particular planet. So in every life of the planet, it took on a grosser level of dirt, or a grosser level of earth and water. So and it had its dips and it rises. So now scientists today realize that when they go to a mountain or go to a particular earth, a part of the earth that's highly elevated, and they look at the layers of the earth, they realize that those was different civilizations that had passed as well. So Madam Blavatsky chose to explain it in that way, and she was actually talking about the different the different cycles, or what they call yugas.
Yugas, yeah.
Cycles of Earth. And she said that's why that happens, because it runs from 400,000 years to 800,000 years to, But she talked about the first root race, the second root race, and how they were, or the first Adam, I think she called it, and how they were sun people, and then they became a moon driven people, like they was on the cycles of the sun, and then they became on the cycles of the moon, which we are currently on the cycles of the moon. But she stated that there was multiple bodies, multiple Earths within one Earth, but each realm was a body of the Earth. The highest body returns back to the sun and come back, which pushed the Earth to a different position. I think Dr. King, in the initiation of the solar system, he describes it much better. I will tell you to read that. In initiation of the solar system, where all life, all those planets that was initiated, or the solar system initiated, they vibrated to a completely different etheric plane of existence.
Right.
Although they did that, we still see the physical planet in the same position. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
But the higher etheric realms of those planets and everything, every symptom of life was vibrated to, to a higher etheric realm. And that was only done by the power of the sun, my knowledge. The same way the initiation of Earth, that they described in July 8th service, they had to use the energy of the sun in order to give the Earth her initiation.
Jack, I'm trying to find on the Aetherius website, the Society website, a text called Life on the Planets. It's a really good book, where it goes into the planets on Mars, Venus, Saturn, and a couple others, and describes how they live there. I'm trying to find it on the website. I don't see it as I'm searching now. I'll continue looking, and or maybe one of the books that you have to request, but because I have a copy of it, I'll pull it up in a bit and show you. But I'd recommend you, or anyone else interested in the subject matter after all, to pick up that, to request that text. Again, I don't see it on the website, but maybe it's somewhere where I'm just not looking right now. Because it will go back to help answering your question. How do the higher levels differ in terms of landscape, for example? And it'll also give you an idea of the proper way to live on and utilize the realms of a planet. So it describes the systems of governance that they use, so for example, on Venus or on Saturn, how the physical realms are treated, the lower realms are treated, and how they, how the cosmic beings live upon the higher realms. It's a very good book, very eye-opening text. That if I find it on the website, I'll put it up and show you where you can get it, or if not, then I'll just pull up a copy that I have, and so you can see what it looks like and request it from the society. All right, and the last question emailed to us, just to add to the first question, what I really want to say is, if those people only get to level 1, so to those people in No Solar Associated, if that's level 1, how good do you have to be to get to level 2? What kind of angel do you have to be to get to level 3? And then the even higher levels, they must be sparsely populated indeed. And we'll go into that today when we talk about moving through the levels of basic man, adept, if we have time, adept and master, and also going to the respective realms after you cross over. Yes, indeed, you'll hear that Dr. George King say level 5, 6, and 7 are sparsely populated. I think level 7, the Bodic, what we refer to as the Boudic or Bodic realm, is practically vacant. Let's actually go into that now, since we're talking about it. Or did you want to add something to that, Nehemiah?
No, I think it's real obvious. I mean, we're given a pathway to go. If we follow that pathway, then we can expect to meet a goal.
Mm-hmm. So if you remember last time we looked at this chart here describing the realms of consciousness. And so we have here one starting at the base of the spine. Let me zoom in a bit. The base of the spine, the Muladhara chakra, 1, sex center, level 2, solar plexus center, level 3. And these are considered the astral realms. These in here considered the lower astral realms or the hells. But the bulk of humanity exists here, 1, 2, and 3. And when we pass over, we move to the subtle expression of these realms and then incarnate back to the physical realm and move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as we move through our evolution. And as we evolve ourselves, convert earlier in today's discussion, Nehemiah said that these are realms of consciousness. So therefore, if we want to move higher and higher in these realms of consciousness, we have to raise our consciousness. And the vehicle in which consciousness is expressed, as we've been taught, is Kundalini. So if we want to traverse higher and higher through the realms of consciousness, we must move our vehicle of consciousness higher and higher and express more and more of it within the physical and subtle bodies, so that we would therefore have bodies capable of traversing and existing in these higher realms. So really what we've been talking about from the very beginning, and why Nehemiah focuses the teachings of the IMKC along the methodology of the mystic constitution of man, because that's really the essence of what we're here to do. It is to understand that constitution of who we really are, how we express ourselves, the level of consciousness in which we operate upon, and how to move that vehicle of consciousness higher and higher up Sushumna, so that the consciousness we express can be reflective of level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, and so on. Again, with the ultimate objective being yoga, or union with God. So as you look out onto the realms of Earth, we're sticking to Earth here because that's the classroom that we're all currently enrolled in. Look out across the realms of Earth, right? You would, and you look out the realms of consciousness which surround the Earth, you would see that the vast majority of humanity, it's around 1, 2, and 3, solar plexus, sex center, and base of the spine center. As you look upon the higher realms, as you'll see here, depicted in 3, 4, and 5, it is the realms of consciousness for the adepts. The adepts at the solar plexus, heart, and throat center. Now, comparatively speaking to the amount of people who are in the basic realms of consciousness, 1 and 2, there are very few adepts on Earth. And if you looked out onto the etheric higher astral, lower etheric realms, heart, throat, and solar plexus, you would see that reflected in those who populate those realms. And then as you move from 5 and 6, the throat center and the Christ center, we move into the realms of consciousness for the masters, meaning entities who operate at the consciousness level of a master, or entities who operate at the consciousness level of an adept. There are even fewer on this earth entities who operate at the realms of consciousness of a master than adepts, and then even fewer so and those who operate at the basic realms of consciousness, or the realm reflected here in 1 and 2. And then you move to the highest subtle realm that I know of here reflected on Earth, the crown chakra. Because remember, if you go back to the 9 freedoms, bravery, love, service, enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, ascension, the highest level of initiation we can receive here on this planet, and then after ascension comes interplanetary existence. Once you reach the realm of crown chakra, the realm of consciousness for the avatar, earth avatars, ascended masters, and cosmic master, you then move into you can choose to leave this classroom and take up incarnation on a higher classroom, like Mars, for example, and become an interplanetary being. Or you can choose to remain here on Earth and serve humanity at the level of a master, or even come down and to an adept and serve it as such is the case for the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, the Great White Brotherhood. In the 9 freedoms, Dr. George King recounts in the story called The Glory of Ascension, of a young woman who, young if you look at it physically, going through the ascension process, and at the end of her the ascension ritual, which is given assistance by cosmic beings who come and perform the ritual for her. He says that she has chosen not to depart from the earth, but to remain on Earth and serve in as part of the spiritual as a member of the spiritual hierarchy. We won't touch, or I will not touch on any the ascension freedom in the 9 freedoms, or interplanetary, or even cosmic consciousness. I think I'll just briefly go over bravery, love, and service. If we have time for it today, we probably won't. So I'll probably just touch on bravery, because for us at our current level, it is the first freedom, and therefore one of the most important steps for us to take, and allows us to open the door to moving onwards to the other freedoms, love and service. Because without bravery, you truly cannot love. And without love, you cannot serve effectively. So let me say, did I answer the question? Hopefully I answered your question, Jack. Let me see if I look at this again. And so the whole purpose of these diagrams, these illustrations, these notes, the lectures, and everything that Nehemiah has taken the time to put together and to give to the world, is so that we can predetermine our actions, take control of our evolution, be more active authors and participants in our karmic patterns, and evolve ourselves higher and higher and higher, so that we move not only our consciousness, but the consciousness of humanity higher and higher, to shift the imbalance from the bulk of the population, ourselves being in lower realms, but higher and higher and higher, so that at one point even we all must pass through the glory of ascension. It all must happen. So why not start today? Why wait? Let's take advantage of the teachings and the doors of the mystery schools being thrown open to us at this age and this time, and bravely march forward in love and service towards enlightenment. Is there anything you wanted to add, Nehemiah, before I move on? So I did mention moving into a bit of the freedoms. Let me see if I covered everything that I wanted to cover. So last time we also looked at this diagram, if you remember. Levels of development through states of consciousness. And again, what's being reflected here is the movement of consciousness through the realms, but reflected in the steps of meditation. All right. So in the lectures, concentration, contemplation, meditation, as well as in lectures, in pretty much every lecture and talk given by Nehemiah Davis, Dr. George King, there is a clear distinction and definition given for meditation. All right. So much so that it is broken up into concentration, contemplation, meditation, and as listed here, samadhi and cosmic consciousness. And that is done to help us better understand this concept, because the term meditation is thrown about everywhere. Everything is looked as meditation, be it just anything is just loose. That term is just loosely thrown and applied to anything. But in the mystic schools, in metaphysics and in mysticism, meditation is a very specific and very active process, as described by George King and Nehemiah. It is where the life force within the body is withdrawn, and all the life force is thrown upon at the Muladhara to awaken the Kundalini and unravel the Kundalini and push that vehicle of consciousness up Sushumna, up the higher levels. And that's why you'll see here meditation reflected in this chart is when Kundalini is pushed up to the solar plexus chakra. And it is at that level where true meditation begins, all the way carries you all the way up to the Christ chakra, and it intersects. That level of concentration again intersects with samadhi and cosmic consciousness. And samadhi and cosmic consciousness itself really taking hold at the crown chakra. At a basic level, the heart, throat, and Christ, but at the greater expression of cosmic consciousness at the crown chakra. But concentration now was described to us as singling of the focus of the mind on a single subject or whatever it is we wish to concentrate upon. If it is a book, we are solely focused on that book to the exclusion of all other thoughts. If it is a flame, a candle flame that we're focusing on, then it is focusing on the flame, the exclusion of all other thoughts. There's even, which is unfortunately, I apologize, it is not available to access now on YouTube, but we have a series on YouTube, the Mystic Practices, which will be made available at a later seminar, which is coming up eventually. In that practice, they might in that series, they might give us techniques to help us develop our concentration to a laser light focus, so that we can move that channeled mental energy into contemplation. And in contemplation, the object or the focus of our concentration, we're then able to tap into it on a subtle level and begin to receive information. That channel of concentration not being moves from being a one-way singular focus of our mind energy onto the object. Now at contemplation, information from that object comes back to us, and we're able to become a knower of the object in which we are contemplating upon. It becomes more of a merging of the consciousness, merging of the auras, and we are able to have this type of bilateral communication on the subtle psychic level with whatever we're contemplating upon. And then I believe it is in meditation where there is no longer you and the object. You merge with the object to become, and then you truly know the object. You know its past, its present, its future, and you the consciousness of the observer and the observed, the differentiation between observer and observed dissolves, and it becomes just one. Is that correct, Nehemiah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to look at someone in meditation physically, again, because the entire life force is withdrawn from the body and is thrown at the Muladhara, at the Kundalini in its 3.5 knot configuration. If that energy is thrown there to unravel the Kundalini and push it up Sushumna. If, for example, the Kundalini is moved to the solar plexus, which at that level we looked at before is you're entering adeptship, or you're a young adept at that level, everything below the solar plexus and down is in a state of conscious death. You cannot move your legs. You cannot walk about. You cannot be taking a stroll through the garden, and in meditation, it's impossible. If Kundalini is raised to the heart center, then everything below the heart center stops. To the throat center, everything below the throat center stops. You stop breathing, so on and so forth. So if you look at someone physically, it looks like they're not doing anything. They're not very active. They're just seated and motionless. But really, the activity moves on a more mental, subtle level. And as they move higher and higher and higher, the activity becomes higher and higher on the subtle and mental and consciousness level. So as we see here, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that corresponds to what we looked at earlier. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As we develop concentration, contemplation, meditation, right? We're moving that vehicle of consciousness. We're evolving our consciousness higher and higher and higher, so that we are able to receive, because remember we talked about how we actually think, right? When since it's consciousness, so the thoughts that we receive depend upon, or the levels of mind that we're able to tap into, dependent upon the level of consciousness in which we're operating upon. So we're able to tap into higher and higher levels of mind as we move that vehicle of consciousness higher and higher up Sushumna. And therefore, we're able to operate at the level of an adept, because that is the level of mind we're predominantly working through. As we move higher, the realms of the conscious of master, the level of mind on that. On these higher levels, 5, 6, and so on, we're able to tap into and receive greater and greater inspiration through our transceiving set. As Dr. King describes, the brain and the spinal column. We're able to tap in those higher levels of mind and operate at those realms of consciousness. The very first step for us at no, I don't think I'll be able to get into love today. So, oh, one moment, please, as I reorganize myself. All right, so last time we finished off on this table, this diagram, sorry, the levels towards mastership: adept, master, avatar, ascended master, devatar. And if you remember, when I said young adept, that's how Nehemiah taught me, or described the individual as they move consciousness to the solar plexus center, and you enter the realms of the adept at the solar plexus center. If you remember, on an earlier diagram where we were talking about the divisions of the realms, we mentioned that well, here it is on the very previous page. The 3 basic and general astral realms exist here in this downward triangle: base, sex, and solar plexus, with the vast majority of humanity being here. But as we move on to the solar plexus center, it is then we begin our departure from the astral realms, become a young adept, and begin our journey upwards to the heart center, where you become a proper well, that's not the right term, but you enter the full adept level. As they move our kundalini higher up at the throat chakra, and become an experienced adept and a young master at the Christ center, Christ chakra, you're going to become an experienced master, and then at the crown center, you enter the avatar level. And this is all described through the cosmic trans teachings of the 9 freedoms. And I think I will just talk about bravery today and leave the others: love, service, enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, ascension, interplanetary existence, Saturnian existence, and solar existence for another time, or invite everyone to read the 9 freedoms. Pick up a copy of the 9 freedoms themselves, pick up the lectures Dr. King gave on the 9 freedoms, and to look at the 9 freedoms playlist that we have on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions about that, or if you would like for me at a later time to cover the 9 freedoms videos and lectures that Nehemiah gave, I will, and I can do that. and up with updated diagrams and illustrations. I can also upload that to the shared Google Drive folder for those who are interested. But the very first freedom is bravery. As Nehemiah describes here, it is brave enough to start on a path of spirituality and dispel fear from life. It is that very first step, which is at our level, I would say, is the hardest, but most essential. And I believe this is one of the reasons why in the Wisdom of Mars, Sector 6, he had stated as bravery being the first freedom. The first freedom shall be bravery. Not might be or can be, but shall be bravery. Brave enough to face fear, brave enough to challenge our preconceived notions, brave enough to take control of our own karma, our own lives, brave enough to take responsibility for our lives and for our future lives, and to say brave enough to start on the path of spirituality or spiritual development. I wanted to end today's discussion by reading from the notes that Nehemiah put together during his lecture series or talks on his lecture series during on the 9 freedoms. This is, he had given us sets of handouts on each of the braveries as we worked through them in class. This was from our MeetUp folder back before that feature was taken down. And so this is actually an old write-up. I think there may be a more recent one available. If I do find a more recent one, then I will put that into the shared folder. But before I move into this, do we have any questions? Or was there anything you wanted to add, Nehemiah?
No, you go ahead and read it.
Okay. So if you go back and look on YouTube at the 9 Freedoms playlist lecture series, this will be either in the first or the second class. I think in the first class, it was the introduction to the 9 Freedoms. And then we really went into it maybe near the middle or the end of the first class or the beginning of the second class. But there are several handouts that were produced and given to us. And this is just one of them for the first freedom. The first freedom will be bravery. Bravery is the mental energy configured to dispel negative accumulated mental energies from the auric mental fields of man. It is a combination of positive mental attitudes and accumulated experiences of past actions that build the many traits and levels of bravery. So if you remember, back when we were looking at the auric unit, and we were talking about samskaras, positive samskaras, negative samskaras, we were looking at the levels of the aura and how the aura is distorted by indulgence in negative samskaras or negative traits, anger, jealousy, malice, greed, so on and so forth, and how the aura is cleaned up through the focus on positive traits, love, service, spirituality, healing, so on and so forth. As mentioned here in this opening paragraph, bravery is the mental energy configured when we dispel those negative samskaras, we burn up those negative samskaras and no longer indulge in them. When we clean up our aura through mantra, through pranayama, through service, other forms of yoga, raja, kundalini, nani, and so forth, bhakti, and so on. It is, Nehemiah mentioned in that first slide we just looked at, it is the courage to enter the path of spirituality. It is the courage to practice niyama, yama, to curtail our free will and work towards achieving freedom. This negative mental distorted astral mind substance that the lower and physical worlds are built on are the manufacturers of false knowledge, which comes from man's distorted mental perception. Mankind's first freedom is bravery, because it is the attitude of energies that gives him the necessary foundation needed to begin the auric cleansing, nadi shuddhi in Sanskrit, which will clear the nadic pathways of man's sensory perception. The first three major chakras of man's consciousness are wrapped in a subtle auric field of mental contamination, born out of the astral distortion accumulated from man's fallen actions. So every time when a conversation on the realms is given, particularly when you look back at previous classes, when Nehemiah is talking about the realms, he always refers to the astral realms as a distortion. And it is, because it is, we talked about earlier, that the lower realms are projections of the heart center and downwards. So the solar plexus center is a part of the heart center. The sex center is a part of the heart center. The base, the Mudahara is a part of the heart center. Those are distortions of those lower realms. And it is, again, in that astral distortion, the bulk of humanity exists. And we therefore, the information and the knowledge that comes to us is contaminated with that distortion, which is why there is so much confusion, particularly surrounding the ancient teachings. The first major chakra is the Muladhara chakra, base of the spine chakra, the level where consciousness rises to a level of self-consciousness. The base of spine chakra is a level of consciousness where the sacred power of Kundalini, which is a vehicle of consciousness for the soul, lies in a dormant sleep waiting to be awakened. It is where over 90% of the power lie dormant and less than 10% of its power flows through the nadic arteries of subtle auric bodies, divided and contaminated with thoughts and actions born from accumulated false knowledge. You can see a reflection there in that 90% dormant, 10% active in what is commonly referred to in percentage of the amount of the brain that we use, right? It is commonly said less than 10%, 15%, whatever the brain is actively used in our daily lives. That is reflected also in the amount of Kundalini, which remains dormant and active at our current level of conscious expression. The base of the spine chakra, Muladhara chakra, is a level of consciousness where man was cut off from the lower animal world and the higher spiritual worlds. It is the middle passage, the end of animalistic experience, and the beginning of a self-conscious existence. Excuse me. This plane of existence is where man emerges in the Mahamaya, conscious existence, or the great illusion, as an individual that is separated from the whole, the absolute, or God. The second major chakra is the Svadhisthana chakra, the sex center, the seat of man's consciousness. It is where the seat of man's consciousness resides. The Sanskrit word sva means one's own, and the Sanskrit word adhisthana means residence or dwelling place. This chakra is the life-giving force of the subtler bodies and gross physical body. It regulates the Vyana pranas throughout the human system, subtle and gross expressions. Most notable thing about this chakra is the 6 negative personality traits or contaminated negative mental energies accumulated at this conscious level, which are as follows. Again, and then these are the negative traits which cloud or contaminate the aura, or the negative samskaras. 1, lust, kama. 2, anger, krodha. 3, greed, lobha. 4, delusion, moha. 5, pride, mada. And 6, envy, matsarya. I hope I said that correctly. These traits or subtle mental impurities are the forces that bring about negative mental fluctuations of consciousness, vrittis, that gave the fertile grounds for negative samskaras created by the thoughts and actions of using the mental framework of these listed 6 negative personality traits. The third major chakra is the Manipura chakra, the solar plexus chakra. It is the major nadi knot along the spinal column, ascending from the base of the spine through Sushumna, the inner core of the spinal column. This chakra is considered to be the city of jewels. There are 2 Sanskrit words that make up the name of this chakra, Manipura. The Sanskrit word mani means jewel, and the word pura means city. The popular meaning and perception of this chakra is considered to be the chakra where the city of jewels resides. It's the chakra that expresses the power of the sun. It is this chakra that powers the full human structure. The soul of man configured the Shakti consciousness of this chakra to manifest the power of the sun and sustain this fission force of this power, and continuously radiates the sacred power throughout the subtle structures and the gross physical structures during its incarnations on the physical realms of existence. So you can see here, hidden in this paragraph, right, why when the Kundalini, the vehicle of consciousness, is raised to the Manipura chakra, the solar plexus chakra, why the individual enters the realm of the adept. They begin to take control of the energy that powers the full human structure. Because remember, as we're taught, that the reason why we're here on earth is to learn to take full conscious control over all the energy within our auric envelope. All the energies that we touch and push through us, from the highest to our lowest aspect, is the full energy of Kundalini, the vehicle of consciousness. Controlling that energy is why we are here on earth. And so when we raise that vehicle of consciousness to the solar plexus center, we begin to start taking control of that power that energizes the human structure on the gross physical realm and physical realms of existence, both in that incarnation and every incarnation forward. Okay. So as we're studying these teachings and these texts, always look for, those hidden nuggets that are in between the lines, and you'll gain, or always read with the attitude of gaining more and more enlightenment in everything you read, especially when we're trying to really concentrate on this, and more will be revealed to you. A single pass is not enough to really understand any teachings. That's why when Dr. George King was talking about, I believe, the 9 freedoms, he said, read it once, read it again, read it again, read it again, and then study it. He said it'll take you 1,000 lives to begin to understand the 9 freedoms, and that's 1,000 lives of study. Bravery is the personality study and application. Sorry, bravery is the personality trait that creates a positive mental energy configuration within man's noetic pathways, subtle nervous energy pathways, and the auric mental bodies that expresses several levels of consciousness. All right. As mentioned here, creates the positive mental energy configuration. Meaning we begin to burn up those negative samskaras. We start to stop the virities, stop the modifications, stop the pulsating and the waves of the aura. We calm down the aura and the mental bodies to allow a freer flow of higher mind energies from the higher levels of consciousness. Bravery destroys ignorance, which is the state of mind that produces a total lack of knowledge, education, or awareness. Bravery propels a person to understand everything around them in order to dismiss fear, which is an obstacle in the operation of bravery. As we have been taught before, the mother of fear is ignorance. And through bravery, we destroy that ignorance. We face and dispel our fear. And it is in the absence of fear where we are truly able to express love, which is the next freedom. Bravery destroys illusion, Maya, which is a state of fear of being intellectually deceived or misled. When man takes on the attitude of bravery, he rises above the Maya and Moha, the illusion and infatuation. Infatuation is the cause to be foolish, deprived of sound judgment, to inspire with a foolish or extravagant love or admiration. Okay. Well, that's part of the notes that were given to us in the series that Nehemiah did on the 9 freedoms. I hope that helped everyone. They're able to gain much from it. Again, if there is interest, I have the complete notes, but on paper. I don't have them electronically, but I'll get the complete notes, at least for bravery. And again, if there's interest, if it's requested, I can share that with everyone, and I'm allowed to share with everyone in the Google Drive shared folder. It's for everyone to download and read and study at their leisure. And again, I repeat what I said at the opening of today's session, to go to the Ethereum Side website, pick up a copy of, what did I say on the website? The Realms of Consciousness, the Life After Death, the Realms of Consciousness, both the Realms of the Masters and then Life After Death. Karma and Reincarnation. Those two topics go hand in hand. That's another lecture. pick up the 9 freedoms text. You are responsible. And if you can find it, Life on the Planets. I'm not sure if it's on the website or not, but next time when we come back, I'll follow up and let everyone know if that text is there or if they have to request it from the society. Cool. Review. You go to our website, mysticknowledge.org, and download the text, The Life Beyond Death by Yogi Ramacharaka. It's in the e-library. And you can also go back and look at our lectures on the same subject. And if you have any more questions about the subject matter, feel free to ask us, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. And like I mentioned earlier, if there is an interest, I can, if people like, can go back and review the film and give more of a commentary on it in the light of, Life Beyond Death text and the lectures given by George King, and answer more questions about it if you guys are interested in that. Otherwise, next time we will continue with our review of the earlier lectures that were given. I'll pick up with class 2 of Metaphysics 101. So if you go on our YouTube channel, you click on playlist and you scroll down, think about 10 or 11 years ago, there was a series of lectures given in a playlist called Metaphysics 101. I covered class 1, a transcript of class 1, and a couple of handouts, illustrations, a review of that, and some previous open discussions. Next time, I'll pick up with class 2, maybe do the first 30 minutes or so. I'll go over a transcript of it, and we'll just review it and look at some more updated handouts about it. And if you have any questions, we can ask the lecturer himself, who will be joining us for it. And then we'll move on to subsequent older lectures, following the same modus operandi. I'll make a transcript of it, and we'll go through the transcript line by line and expanding on the information that was given in those earlier lectures, an opportunity for us to review it and keep the information fresh in our minds. And so are there any final questions or comments everyone have? Is there anything you'd like to add, Nehemiah?
Yeah, it was the spirit world, levels of consciousness, and the realms of the master.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
From the Theory Society website.
Yes. If there's no final questions or comments, let us close out today's session. Reciting the New Lord's Prayer. And I do hope I was able to get to all the questions in the chat. I did see a couple of your comments, Lem. Thank you. Hopefully I did not miss any messages in the chat. So a quick check here to make sure everything is working properly. All right. There's a question here. Are we able to get the handouts related to 9 freedoms that coincide with these teachings? If I'm able to, I'll have to get them from Nehemiah directly. There was, unfortunately, an accident where he lost many of his files from earlier years. So I don't know if he has them still or not, but if not, I'll go through my collection of handouts, and if I find them, I'll rescan them, and hopefully I have all of them. I'm pretty sure I attended all of those classes back then, and I still have all those handouts on paper. But if I can find them in my archive, then I'll scan them in, or if anybody's able to find them and send to me, and then I'll make them available to those interested in it. All right, let us recite the new Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up, and in doing so receive for their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength, so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. Oh, great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attendance and participation. To take advantage of the many resources made available to you at mysticknowledge.org under the e-library, as well as our previous videos on our YouTube channel. And if you do have any questions or comments, you can have the option of waiting to our next open discussion to pose them openly, or if you'd like us to address them privately, you can send your questions to us via email and we'll respond. Again, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Take care.